Hello everyone, and welcome back to our discussion of the tragedy of Julius Caesar. Today we're going to begin Act 1, Scene 3. I want you guys to know from now though, this scene is incredibly short. So it's only going to be 2 videos, meaning that after I post the video following this, you're going to be given your worksheet for Scene 3. So please do make sure you're taking notes from now. So let's go ahead and set this scene because we have finally moved away from the daylight in the street of Rome, and now we're going to take on a darker setting. So one thing about this setting, although it is new, right, this new scene, new setting idea, something similar is that we're still in the streets of Rome, but something vastly different about this now is that one, we are on March 14th. So we jumped ahead almost 1 month, and now it is the night before the Ides of March. So the conspiracy is about to happen. And something contextually we need to know about this scene as it opens is that Casca is going to run into Cicero, one of the members of the Senate. And Casca is going to tell him about a bunch of frightening and ominous signs he has seen throughout this night, and how he is going to look at these signs as bad omens, meaning something not good is about to happen. So in terms of their conspiracy, we're going to see Casca initially show great fear about what they're about to do. And rightfully so, right? As we read, we're going to see these are incredibly bad omens. However, Cassius is then going to enter the scene, and he and Casca are going to discuss these signs, and Cassius is going to see how all of these signs point to their need to kill Caesar. So again, just a brief reminder, we're going to be talking about these 3 central characters then as the scene opens. Cicero, the member of the Senate, who, by the way, is part of the group that would have Caesar as king, and then Casca and Cassius, both of whom are members of the conspiracy seeking to bring Caesar down. Thunder and lightning. Enter, from opposite sides, Casca, with his sword drawn, and Cicero. Good even, Casca. Brought you Caesar home. Why are you breathless, and why stare you so? Are not you moved, when all the sway of earth shakes like a thing unfirm? O Cicero, I have seen tempests when the scolding winds have rived the knotty oaks, and I have seen the ambitious ocean swell and rage and foam to be exalted with the threatening clouds. But never till tonight, never till now, did I go through a tempest dropping fire. Either there is a civil strife in heaven, or else the world, too saucy with the gods, incenses them to send destruction. Why, saw you anything more wonderful? A common slave, you know him well by sight, held up his left hand, which did flame and burn like 20 torches joined, and yet his hand, not sensible of fire, remained unscorched. Besides, I had not since put up my sword. Against the Capitol I met a lion, who glared upon me and went surly by without annoying me. And there were drawn upon a heap 100 ghastly women, transformed with their fear, who swore they saw men, all in fire, walk up and down the streets. And yesterday the bird of night did sit even at noonday upon the marketplace, hooting and shrieking. When these prodigies do so conjointly meet, let not men say, these are their reasons, they are natural. For I believe they are portentous things unto the climate that they point upon. Indeed, it is a strange disposed time, but men may construe things after their fashion, clean from the purpose of the thing themselves. Come Caesar to the Capitol tomorrow? He doth, for he did bid Antonius send word to you he would be there tomorrow. Good night then, Casca. This disturbed sky is not to walk in. Farewell, Cicero. Exit Cicero. Who's there? A Roman. Casca, by your voice. Your ear is good. Cassius, what night is this? A very pleasing night to honest men. Who ever knew the heavens menace so? Those that have known the earth so full of faults. For my part, I have walked about the streets, submitting me unto the perilous night, and, thus unbraced, Casca, as you see, have bared my bosom to the thunder stone. And when the cross blue lightning seemed to open the breast of heaven, I did present myself, even in the aim, the very flash of it. But wherefore did you so much tempt the heavens? It is the part of men to fear and tremble when the most mighty gods by tokens send such dreadful heralds to astonish us. You are dull, Casca, and those sparks of life that should be in a Roman you do want, or else you use not. You look pale, and gaze, and put on fear, and cast yourself in wonder to see the strange impatience of the heavens. But if you would consider the true cause, why all these fires, why all these gliding ghosts, why old men fool and children calculate, why all these things change from their ordinance, their natures, and performed faculties, to monstrous quality, why, you shall find that heaven hath infused them with these spirits, to make them instruments of fear and warning unto some monstrous state. Now could I, Casca, name to thee a man most like this dreadful night, that thunders, lightens, opens graves, and roars as doth the lion in the Capitol, a man no mightier than thyself or me in personal action, yet prodigious grown and fearful as these strange eruptions are. 'Tis Caesar that you mean, is it not, Cassius? Let it be who it is, for Romans now have thews and limbs like to their ancestors, but woe the while, our fathers' minds are dead, and we are governed by our mothers' spirits, our yoke and sufferance show us womanish. Indeed, they say the senators tomorrow mean to establish Caesar as king, and he shall wear his crown by sea and land in every place, save here in Italy. I know where I will wear this dagger then. Cassius from bondage will deliver Cassius. Therein, ye gods, you make the weak most strong. Therein, ye gods, you tyrants do defeat. Nor stony tower, nor walls of beaten brass, nor airless dungeon, nor strong links of iron can be retentive to the strengths of spirits. But life, being weary of these worldly bars, never lacks power to dismiss itself. If I know this, know all the world besides. That part of tyranny that I do bear, I can shake off at pleasure. Thunder still. So as we begin to unpack this scene, we need to particularly rely on our imagination. Because we're reading this drama, right, we're not seeing it played out in front of us, we're going to miss out on a few of the sound and light elements that you would have in a production. And one of the things that we need to imagine here is that there are loud booms of thunder going off all the time, these huge flashes of lightning, and that this is enough to render grown men fearful. And in the case of Casca, we're going to see that he looks at these signs as being bad omens. It's not just that there is an awful storm outside. It's that this storm is a sign sent from the heavens that something bad is about to happen. And this is important to remember because the other characters in this scene in particular are not going to share Casca's view. One of the central things about this scene, in fact, is that everyone in it doesn't have an accurate understanding of what these signs really mean. They all interpret them incorrectly and to their peril. So the first thing that we realize in this scene, as Cicero points out, is that Casca is very frightened. See that we are described that he is breathless. So we can imagine he's been running from cover to cover, trying to seek shelter from the storm, that he's staring about. You can imagine these wild eyes looking left and right and up and down, right? He's looking out for something watching him, something trying to get him. So already the tone and the mood of this scene is very tense. And now we have Casca explain why he is so frightened. And he says that he's frightened because of the sway of the earth and that it shakes like something unfirm. And here when he says the sway of the earth, he means the natural order of things. The way that the world is supposed to work, it's not working that way on this night. And he questions Cicero, right, a rhetorical question, are you not moved by the fact that you see the natural order of things all around us changed and made into something unnatural? And here he's going to begin to explain that he's seen scary things in the past. He begins by saying that he's seen these tempests or these storms, right? So powerful that they've taken these great oaks, a type of tree, and pulled them from their roots. He's seen the ocean so monstrous and so enraged, right? Thinking again back to personification, that the very depths of it reach up to touch the clouds, right? This is terrifying imagery, you guys. And Casca is saying, I've seen these things before, but it's never been until tonight, right? Until this night that he says he begins to see storms that rain fire. So this is what he sees. And now we, in our modern day approach, might think of this as a meteor shower. But for Casca, this would have been something incredibly terrifying, something unprecedented for him. And rather than think of some natural explanation for what's happening, he says it can only be one of two things that is causing this destruction. Because the first is a civil strife in heaven, meaning that the gods are fighting with one another, and we're just the people who are caught in the backlash of that. But the other option that he says is that the world has become too saucy with the gods. Remember, saucy meaning disrespectful. And so the gods, in their anger, have sent all of this awful weather to destroy us. And then Cicero is going to ask him, why? Did you see anything more wonderful? And here he doesn't mean beautiful or glorious. He means strange, right? So he knows that Casca had to see something pretty terrifying to be this frightened, that he's walking around with his sword drawn. So key things to note here, right? We see that Shakespeare makes excellent use of imagery, and that nature itself is personified, right? It becomes a figure, and this is a terrifying figure. And that Casca, as someone who is superstitious, but also religious meaning that he believed in the many ancient gods of Rome, that he believed that the gods have something to do with the strange weather. And now Casca is going to reveal a bunch of different things that he has seen on this night that have caused him to be so frightened. And he is going to interpret all of these as signs of a bad omen, something awful that is coming. And the first thing that he says he sees is this slave who apparently is well known to Casca and to Cicero. And he says that he held up his left hand, the slave did, and Casca sees that it's entirely set alight, that it's on fire and it's burning. So obviously this man should be in a great deal of pain, but he's not. And when you look at the hand through the flames, it looks like a normal hand, meaning it's not being eaten up by the fire in the way that it should be, the first unnatural thing that he sees. Remember, everything he sees goes against the natural order of the world. And then he says that before he sees this next thing, right, he's pulled out his sword, and he doesn't put it away, not even when he meets Cicero again, hence how frightened he truly is. And now he's going to say that he meets a lion in the Capitol, right? The Capitol being the center point of Rome, right, where all the senators would meet and have their governmental meetings. And something strange about this lion, right, rather than attacking Casca as it should do by nature, it leaves him alone. He says, without annoying me. Annoying here not meaning that it's pesky or bothersome, but that it doesn't attempt to harm him. So this is something that we're going to need to pick up on too later in the scene, because when we think of a lion, symbolically, one of the great things that we should think of, right, is someone who is very prideful, right? Someone who is strong and fierce, but also we call the lion the king of the jungle. And who else in this scene, or who else in this broader play, is attempting to make themselves king? Something that we need to think about, okay? The next thing that Casca claims that he has seen are 100 ghastly women. So ghastly not meaning that they are disgusting or bad looking, meaning they're pale, that these women have seen something so frightening that they have been made into something like a ghost, right? Imagine that you're scared speechless. This has happened to these women, right? Meaning they've seen something terrifying. But it doesn't stop there. He continues to go on. The thing that frightened these women so much is that they swear that they have seen men, not just with their hand on fire, but their entire bodies on fire. So guys, when we think about this, we should be imagining a horror movie. Something that is truly frightening because it goes against everything that we're meant to understand in human nature and in the nature of the environment around us. Furthermore, Casca then also claims that he sees a bird of the night, meaning an owl, and that he has seen this bird even at noonday, so the middle of the day, perched up in the marketplace, hooting and screeching. And this is something that should not be, right? It's a bird of the night, meaning that it should not be out in the day. So it's as if the world has been turned upside down. And Casca says that they need to take these things seriously because these prodigies or strange events, all of them happening conjointly, meaning at the same time, men shouldn't think that, oh, it's just normal, just the way things work. Right? It's not normal, that we need to look at these things and take them for what they truly are. He says these portentous things or these bad omens. So this is the way that Casca is going to view everything that he sees in this night, that these things are not possible, that they go against the nature of the environment, and that because they do, this is a bad omen. It's an incredibly awful thing. And so here we see Cicero get to reply to Casca, and we need to remember that Cicero is not part of the conspiracy. So he is not out to kill Caesar, and he knows nothing about it. So his response to Casca is essentially, you only think this. You're only construing this because of what you already have in your mind, right? As if when you hear someone speak to you, then rather than really truly understanding what they're trying to say, all that occurs is that you interpret what you want to hear anyway. So Cicero looks at these and he dismisses them, right? The first person in our group to misread these signs. And he asks Casca an important question. He says, is Caesar going to be in the capital tomorrow? And Casca affirms that he is. And Cicero then bids him good night, and he warns Casca that this disturbed sky is not to walk in. So he's telling Casca, do not continue to stay out at night. Go home. Right? Advice that Casca is not going to follow. Next, we enter our scheming friend Cassius. And remember, it is pitch black, you guys. So he asks, when he hears these noises of Casca's footsteps, he asks who's there. And Casca replies a Roman. And by his voice, Cassius understands it to be Casca. And Casca immediately begins to talk to Cassius about the craziness of this night. And Cassius, like Cicero, dismisses him. And he says that it's a pleasing night to be out if you're an honest man. And now this is interesting because this is going to reveal that this is the way Cassius views himself. So he's not going to be afraid of the weather around him. He's not even going to view it as a bad omen, right? He is going to believe that it is a good thing. And now Casca is going to be the one speaking from this place of reason in a sense, because one of Cassius's main faults is his pride. And so Casca is going to ask, right, have you ever known the skies to be so evil, so wicked, so menacing and frightening? And again, Cassius is going to respond like this man who knows everything. And he says that those that have known the earth so full of faults. So he is going to say, yes, I know these things and they are normal because I see the world with the faults that exist. The huge fault, again, right, being the fact that Caesar is about to claim his control as king, something Cassius has fought against. And now we're going to see Cassius's pride amped up a notch. And here's where I want you to remember the warning that Cicero has given to Casca, that this is not a night to walk around in, right? In these lines, Cassius reveals that not only does he walk out in the midst of the thunder, but he brazenly, boldly bares his chest to the thunder. He walks around, and when he sees the lightning crack in the sky, he exposes his chest to heaven, right? Essentially saying, hit me if you can, right? Challenging the very heavens. And this would be something sacrilegious. You would not do that, right? Because in a sense, you're challenging the gods. And Casca points out as much. Why do you tempt the heavens, meaning the gods? And he says here, and this would have been the ancient Roman mentality, right? It's the part of men to fear and tremble. right? When the gods send these dreadful heralds or signs to astonish us. And so on the one hand, we have Cassius in his pride, walking around as if he understands that these are all good signs, and as a result, he's not afraid of them. It's not a challenge to him. And then you have Casca, who views these signs as negative, and that we should, as men, be afraid. And Cassius is going to look at this fear that exists in Casca, and rather than trying to understand it, he is going to accuse Casca of essentially being a weak individual, someone who puts on fear at just the slightest, what Cassius calls his impatience of heaven. Right? It's not impatience, right? We've already read through this. It's a frightening storm, and Casca is right to be afraid. But Cassius, right, ever the schemer and the plotter, he looks at all of these signs, and he thinks that he is right. And one thing I want to point out, right, before we move on, is that we've talked about personification so far in the text in terms of attributing human characteristics to non-human things. In literature, we have a specific type of personification that's reserved particularly for personifying nature, and we call it the pathetic fallacy. Okay? Pathetic not meaning that it's weak or something not to be looked down upon, but meaning in the sense that we take human emotion in particular and give it to nature. And this is something in particular that Shakespeare is very, very fond of doing. And it's used in a way to bring nature to life, and oftentimes using nature to condemn certain things that are happening around them, right? And so obviously one of the huge things that nature is going to be condemning in this scene that Casca attempts to see but cannot place accurately, that Cicero sort of washes away, and that Cassius blatantly ignores, is that the scheme that they're plotting to bring about, the downfall of Caesar, is what these bad omens are all about, trying to warn them against it, not encouraging them to do it. Continuing, Cassius is going to talk about similar signs that he has seen, and he's going to do this to try to convince Casca that these signs, again, are going to be signs that point to the goodness of relieving Rome of Caesar permanently. And the first thing he says are the fires that he sees. So taking things that Casca himself has viewed and twisting them to his own agenda. Also these ghosts, again, something Casca's already brought up. So he's not denying anything Casca has seen, but he's taking them and appropriating them for his own argument. Next, he talks about children who calculate, meaning that they foresee the future. And Cassius brings all of these things to say that these things change in their ordinance, meaning their nature, and they do so with a monstrous quality, he says. And the purpose of all of these signs is to be used as an instrument of fear and warning unto some monstrous state. So again, fear and warning about the coming kingship of Caesar. So again, we're going to see that Cassius looks at these signs, right, from the heavens as a warning, but not a warning against something bad that he is about to do, but something bad that could occur if they do nothing. And now Cassius moves into sneakily trying to get Casca to believe what he's saying, right? I could name a man, he tells Casca, that fits all of these things, who's just as fearful as the night, who also thunders, opens graves, and roars like a lion in the Capitol. Right? Thinking back to the lion as a symbol of a king. And Cassius is speaking about Caesar. And Casca, right, not the dumb character that he makes himself out to be in previous scenes, rightly guesses this. So Cassius points out that Caesar is a fearful figure, and that all of these signs of the heavens simply mean that we should kill him. And Cassius, rather than saying, yes, this is what I'm talking about, says, let it be who it is. Right? Again, trying to continue to persuade Casca, but without seeming overly eager. And now, interestingly enough, Cassius begins to talk about a negative view that he has of the Roman people, saying that although they have these thews and limbs that are like their ancestors, meaning physically they look like Roman people, fearsome, mentally they are dead. And they have placed themselves under the yoke, remember the burden of Caesar, in a womanly way. And now this is to point out an ancient view that not just existed in ancient Rome, but also, unfortunately, in Shakespeare's time, that women are the weaker of the sexes in regards to men. And so this idea is being played out here, that the Roman people have become like women. And now Casca reveals to Cassius what they both fear, that they, the senators, intend to establish Caesar as king tomorrow. Now remember what tomorrow is. If today is March 14th, tomorrow is March 15th, the Ides of March. So we know that this conspiracy needs to be done tomorrow or all is lost. And now Cassius, in the last part of what we're going to discuss, begins to reflect on these things. And he says, I know where I will wear this dagger. And he talks about it not in the sense of literally wearing it, right, but metaphorically speaking, where he will place it. And one of the things that he is talking about here, right, is how Cassius can deliver himself from the bondage of Caesar. Right? He says he'll deliver himself, right? And one of the things he's hinting to subtly here then is suicide. And we know that to be true because of these last set of lines. But life, being weary of these worldly bars, never lacks power to dismiss itself. So Cassius is essentially saying here, I have two options, right? Either I will kill myself or I will kill Caesar. So again, just some key things to talk about. Cassius thinks very negatively of the Roman people, something he does not share in common with Brutus. This is important to remember. Also, you have this ancient view of women as weak creatures, unfortunately, right? Especially in this play, because as we're going to see in later scenes, women are some of the few people in this play who try to speak wisdom to the men around them. And then finally, Cassius would rather kill himself than to live under Caesar. And finally, seeing that repeated here, that Cassius is determined to do whatever it takes to rid himself of the tyranny that he views in Caesar. That is going to be it for video number 24. In our next video, we're going to finish Act 1, Scene 3, where we begin to see the plot thicken. Also, I want to remind you, because this is such a short scene, we're only going to have 2 videos before you are given your worksheet, so do make sure that you are taking notes. And because it is such a short scene, I'm not going to have you do a question for this video, so please just make sure that you take notes. As always, if you have any questions about this scene in particular, do feel free to comment in the video or email me and ask them. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow.